Maybe some of us have played hundreds of hours World of Warcraft, thousands of hours League of Legends, enough Candy Crush Saga to take up half your life. Games have a very important place both in popular culture and among consumable contents. Every year we see games develop with larger budgets than Hollywood productions, where millions of dollars are spent and struggled. The game industry is growing so much that people of all ages can now access games and find something they like. This brings one inevitable truth: our growing addiction to games. Some of the known symptoms of gaming addiction include thinking about gaming all or a lot of the time, feeling bad when you can't play, needing to spend more and more time playing to feel good, not being able to quit or even play less, not wanting to do other things that you used to like, having problems at work, school, or home because of your gaming, and etc. You may have seen or experienced these symptoms at some point in your life. People can develop a high degree of addiction to alcohol, drugs, or even love. Game addiction is one of them. So, why do we get addicted to games? What tactics do game companies know to keep us in the game a little longer? Let's examine this a little bit. What causes this is simply one word: dopamine. Another accepted name of dopamine is the pleasure chemical. Any tangible or intangible thing that serves the concept of reward releases dopamine. It could also be 5 red candies that come together perfectly in the Candy Crush, or in the Batman Arkham series it may be to save the city and all its people from a great apocalypse after so much struggle. Every award in life has one thing in common: they are not simple to obtain. Eating 3 or 4 meals a day is also a reward for our brain. But we do not experience scenarios like games can be as addictive as I mentioned every day. This is what makes such awards so special and unique. After all, we can't be Spider-Man every day, can we? Or we couldn't be. We can now be the protagonist of our own virtual story every day. One day, as Spider-Man, we can fight against the Venom, and one day, we can be a hunter that tracking monsters in Monster Hunter World. All of these enable us to reveal the oppressed and suppressed emotions in our daily life personally, or in a virtual commune, and become the strong characters we have always dreamed of. One of the most important factors: strong characters. Just like the high-budget movies in the movie industry, whose general audience is action-loving and offers the opportunity to watch their dreams of becoming an agent or something like that, the characters we are accustomed to seeing in high-budget and million-dollar winning games are not weak and lame. At least most of the time they are not. Because they are brands that periodically release AAA games such as Square Enix, Ubisoft, Nintendo, etc. These mega companies determine their economical plans accordingly to make millions. Usually, the character we want to lead must have extraordinary powers or something that differs you from everyone. They try to make us feel that we are an important person with a key role in the universe of the game. Just like Commander Shepard from Mass Effect. One legendary person against the evil forces that threaten the entire universe or races. Or as in all the games based on the Marvel universe. At the beginning of the game, our character, who is loser and is only as valuable as an insignificant man or woman passing by on the street, develops throughout the game and has matured so much by the end of the scenario. By experiencing this, we see the process of ourselves. We establish a bond with the character. This leads to the second most important dopamine effect: empathy. Our psychological resemblances to the character and unattainable strengths are appealing to us. It is very important for us to want to see that someone who has grown up with Uncharted series games for 14 years, since the first game, can talk about Nathan Drake like someone he knows, and to see that big story come to an end as it deserves, as every successful game series should. Just as we can empathize with a person after spending hours, years with them, the same is true for game characters. Of course, there are also games without personality, consisting of huge robots, ships, and tanks, like they are only online oriented. The method of empathizing in these games is not provided by a character, but by an object of desire. For example, the number one element that makes the Titanfall game series special and pushes the play is of course not aimlessly killing people like other online FPS games do. The Titans are being in a powerful role in a war, for example, economical, political, or military, whatever it is, it attracts people. The Titans clearly have the upper end in the battle. A futuristic scenario that we may see in years, centuries later maybe. Here we find the Titans as objects of desires. Impressive and empathetic. Game companies know very well about the objects of desires because they know how many dollars we can pay for in-game trading so that we look different, even if it's only cosmetically in games like Destiny, which are actively played by millions of people. Blizzard Entertainment, which has leading game brands such as World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Overwatch, made a profit of $8.1 trillion in 2020 only from the games they released years ago. I think the 10-digit money is self-explanatory enough. Games are very addictive by nature because they have a gameplay. Another of the most important dopamine reasons: gameplay. It makes people happy to see the results of our actions directly in a game universe and to know, or at least think, that it will not have any negative effects on us in real life. Sending a comment via gamepad or keyboard/mouse and seeing its effects is the source of our first sympathy towards games. This is the main thing that separates games from TV series and movies. From strategy games such as Age of Empires, which will satisfy our desire to rule, to platform games such as Mario series, which will reflect the imagination of our inner child, not only to see but to experience each of them personally. Why have game makers started to focus so much on the marketing of open-world concept games in recent years? This question has two answers. First of all, open-world games are much larger in nature. Traveling in the open world and doing dozens of similar activities and side quests means keeping the player in the game more. The more time the player stays in the game, the more it means that the game remains up to date, and purchases are going to happen in-game or as additional packages. They also aim to promise longer gameplay times in the game as a marketing thing. Mostly they end with huge disappointments or average review scores. A second answer is that it allows the player to see more of the consequences of their own actions. An open-world game is much broader in content, and it's up to you whether you consume the game's content or not. So, how linear games don't have even an open-world concept can sometimes be more interesting than this wide concept. The biggest example of this is Tetris, which was developed by Electrotechnica in 1984. and is the second best-selling game in the world. By selling exactly 170 million units, it managed to sell approximately 9 times more than Grand Theft Auto 3. By means 44th the world's most purchased game of the world. So, what made Tetris so attractive? Of course, the socio-cultural level of the society, accessibility to technology, and advertising campaigns played a big role in this, but how exactly? It is basically your brain. The human brain is great at putting pieces together and fitting missing puzzle pieces. Our tendency to put the pieces together, one of our most primitive, instinctive behaviors, goes back 200,000 years. Our ancestors tried to pattern everything that could not make sense in the 3D world or could not see in the dark at night. The reason for this was to survive, because our ancestors, who could only see the shadow or silhouette of a predator that could burst through the trees at night, used something called visual intelligence to understand what they were up against. They filtered through the cerebral cortex all the dangers they could make sense of in the daytime and copied them into their memory. In order to survive, the brain would assemble the pieces with the closest 3D figure among various memories and would give our ancestors clues about what they might encounter. You may have heard the same process in a metaphor of a strip of life passing before us when we die. The reason for this is that our brain shows us photographic data that we can hold on to life in order to try to keep the body alive. Tetris has used a very simple and primitive event that integrated it into a game. Every time we put the pieces together, we release dopamine. The harmony between colors and geometric shapes relaxes you. This is because it acts as a reward for the piece assembly event by signaling that our brain is working well. So, if you see a parent playing games with putting pieces together or bubble popping mechanics like Candy Crush, Tetris, on a bus, at work, or at home, just don't judge them. They are just doing what our ancestors did. I know it's a cliche to hear, but most of you know the YouTube algorithm. If you enjoyed what you just watched right now, please like and don't forget to subscribe and press the bell to see our upcoming interesting videos. Bye guys!